Issei was in the wrong car. It's I, Wacky Anime What If, and I hope you guys enjoy this. This is part 1. Issei was just born, but unlike all the other kids, he had something different about him. Once he was born and the doctor looked at him, the doctor could have swore there was a hole where his chest should have been, where his heart would be. But this white liquid filled up the hole and it disappeared. And this left the doctor with a little bit of worry. But he just thought, maybe I'm just very tired. I mean, I went over to a night shift for 2 days in a row. So, yeah, I don't really think that what I saw was real. So he hands over the very, very weird child, in his opinion. Because the child, whenever the child was born, didn't cry, didn't whine, didn't scream, didn't do anything, was completely still and silent, and looked at everyone as if he was observing the room, or observing the people. And the doctor handed the baby to the mother. The mother saw the baby and noticed it was really weird. His eyes were completely blank. They were pitch black. And his hair was, well, kind of odd. It was completely black, but with red tips. And the fact that the baby had hair in the first place, already had almost a full-grown amount of hair, a full head of hair already, right when it's born, was even more off-putting. But it was their baby. Might have been a mutation or something. There's nothing really that wrong, I guess. So the mom took the baby home. The dad was unsettled by the child, because it didn't cry, didn't laugh, didn't do anything whenever he tried to make a funny face out of it. All it did was stare. And the mom went to their house, drove to their house with the dad, and they just stared at the kid the entire time, as if they were in a trance into his eyes. They felt nothing. It's as if the child looked emotionless. And when they went home, they put the child in the crib. And the mom loved the child. The dad, once the dad even saw the kid, was disgusted. This kid looked nothing like him or her. They both have brown hair. How does this kid have black hair with red tips? And how does he have a full-grown thing of hair? Full-grown head of hair. And black eyes. Completely pitch black eyes. And that just creeped out the father. So the father told the mother of Issei, I've gotta go. I gotta go get some milk. And you know how the story goes. The dad left. He went in the car and he drove away. And never looked back. The mother was heartbroken, but decided to raise the boy anyway. A few years later, Issei is currently at the age of 5. He's at his little preschool, and everyone's looking at him and wondering why he's so emotionless. Every time he went to school and back and forth, he never showed a smile, a glance at people. He didn't exactly fit in. He was the outcast, because whenever he went to school, people stayed away from him. He was very creepy to them. He was so distant, so emotionless. It's as if he was just empty on the inside. His entire demeanor was very polite, though. The kids have noticed throughout the years, he's always polite to authority and to others. For example, when this woman fell to the ground because she tripped over a rock, even though Issei was only 5, he managed to lift a full-grown woman up, and lift them up with just one finger. And he also ended up looking at her and saying, "Are you okay? Do you need any assistance?" And was very overall kind. So the kids didn't really think much about it. So he did end up becoming somewhat popular, but Still not too popular, because some people were still creeped out about the fact his entire facial expression never changed. And throughout the years, he was known as the Empty, or the Empty Dragon. It's because the entire time that you see him, if you ever try to fight him, you feel the essence and the pure strength radiating from him. It's unknown why, but you will be shaking on your knees, on the ground, begging for mercy without him even doing a finger of damage to you. And some people that tried to fight him have been in mental hospitals for years, all because, unknown to Issei, he let out some type of ominous aura around him whenever someone tries to engage him. It's like unconsciousness. Unconsciously is doing this. It's as if death themselves, King Kami, just looked at them and decided to flick them in the forehead. That's what it felt like to them. Throughout the years, there's been a few rules about Issei. You don't go near Issei. You don't talk to Issei. Anything wrong to Issei. You don't belittle him. And you don't really mind him. Because Issei's always been more of a loner. Throughout his entire life, all the way up to Kohai, he hasn't talked to a single person. There was a time where he tried to talk to someone, but they always scurry away and run. And Issei doesn't know why. This made him feel a little depressed. He has emotions, it's just he can't show it on the outside. It's an odd phenomenon. He can't show his emotions on the outside. Everyone else just sees a blank face. Just a blank, emotionless face. And they assume he's emotionless when he's not really. He's always crying on the inside, even if it doesn't show on the outside. The fact he has no friends. The fact that, hell, his own mother, whenever his own mother sees him, just thinks of him as disappointment, and even actively says so. And she's even beaten on Issei, or tried to, but his very aura prevented her from, made her kneel on the ground and start begging for mercy. And Issei didn't even mean to do this. Issei never means to do any harm, it's just the aura around him does. And it's not anything he can control. So all the way up until Kohai, he's been just depressed, bummed out, in complete despair. And one day, when he's on his first day to go to Kohai, he gets on his Kohai outfit, gets out of bed, and walks down the stairs to see his mom doing some heroin on the couch. And Issei just ignores it, because ever since he was born, she's been doing heroin, cocaine, tons of meds that weren't prescripted to her, and all of this just pissed him off on the inside, because he knows it's somehow his fault. He feels like it's his fault, because even though he tries to comfort her, all she does is slap him away and say, "Get away from me, you damn monster, you emotionless, worthless child." And Issei just stopped going towards her. Figured, just leave her alone. She ignores me, I ignore her. That's all that needs to be done. While he just walks up to the kitchen, he makes eggs, bacon, rice, some pancakes, some syrup on the pancakes, and he makes some bacon wrapped sausages. And he puts some into a bento for him for school. Well, he makes a lot, because he eats a lot, surprisingly. Even though he finds no joy in anything on the outside, he finds joy in eating on the inside. So he keeps the bento with him, and he carries it to school while leaving a plate for his mother, which his mother never really eats. His mother ends up throwing it all away, thinking that's poisoned. Thinking that the so-called empty dragon is trying to poison or kill her, even though to her, the name Empty Dragon doesn't really fit him. More like Empty Demon, or Devil Child, is what she calls him, casually. So much that Issei starts to believe that he actually is an empty dragon, or just an empty husk of what people should have been. While he's walking to school, he always thinks about depressing things. And going to Kohai, he thinks no different. But once he enters Kohai, all the girls start staring at him because he's pretty buff for his age. He has quite the toned skin. He has quite the muscular six-pack. No, he doesn't even have a six-pack. She has an eight-pack. And all the girls start staring at him while drooling. And the guys look at him in complete jealousy and somewhat respect, because it's hard to get your body like that. Even though the Issei, he never really had to do anything. It's as if his body was just molding itself. And Issei just ignored all the looks he got and just walked into school. And everyone looked at him, even the teachers. And this made him feel like he was going to have a horrible year. He was going to have a horrible school life just like all the other schools. So he walked up the stairs, he went up to his classroom, he opened the door, and he said, "Hi there, I'm the new transfer student, Issei Hyodo. But you guys can just call me Issei. I'm not one for formalities." He says it in a cold, monotone voice that gives all the people in there shivers, though the females didn't really mind. They were just looking at him like eye candy, which Issei has already noticed, because that's what most females do whenever he enters the classroom, and it gets very annoying to him. He walks to the back, he sits down, and he feels a yank from behind him. And he looks behind him and he sees this white-haired, short girl. And he says, "Hi there, what did you need?" And she said, I sense a weird power from you. Are you actually human?" And this made Issei shatter on the inside, because all of his time, people have at least acknowledged him as human. But this girl right here didn't even acknowledge him as human, is what he was thinking. Though this white-haired girl known as Koneko, which he found out from attendance, was thinking that he was a devil or something. Which she ended up saying, whispering to him, "Are you a devil by chance?" And this made him furious on the inside. But on the outside, he had a calm, collected look, one of emotionlessness. And he said, "I'm not a devil, and I'm not anything but human. Could you please leave me alone after insulting me like this?" And he just turned around. And Koneko felt bad because, well, she just called what is probably a normal human with just some weird aura a devil, or something that would mostly be insulting in the human world. So she tried to apologize to him, but Issei was just lost in thought, like in a trance. And she couldn't help but admire his beauty. So she just watched him, while thinking of ways to apologize. Issei ended up hearing the bell ring. He got up. All the girls headed towards him, and said, What do you like to eat? Where would you like to go exactly? Do you want to go on a date?" All of this different stuff. There was a lot of them crowding him. And he said, "No, I do not want to go on a date with anyone, male or female. And I eat whatever I want. Specifically, most of the stuff in my bento. But anyway, aside from that, I'm not interested in joining any clubs if anyone's going to ask that question. And I don't really care about any of you here. And I hope all of you leave me alone. Because I prefer silence, not loud people, loudmouth people, or people that want to spread rumors about me, or gossip. I'm not into that. I'm not into what you guys call spilling the tea, what you girls call spilling the tea. I'm not interested in any of that stuff. So please, refrain yourselves from talking to me. And Issei just walks away, opens the door to the front of the classroom, and leaves, while Konako follows him cheerfully behind him. She doesn't know why she's cheerful about him saying all this stuff, but she also wants to get to know Issei because Issei seems very interesting. Also, for some reason, her instincts are saying to get closer to him. She doesn't know this is her mating instincts, considering how strong Issei is, and how he holds himself with pride, in her opinion. Even though he's holding himself more in depression. But no one could really see that from his actual outer appearance. It's hard to tell. It's like a Rubik's Cube that's hard to solve. They can't solve how he is on the inside. They just judge him from the outside. At least that's what Issei thinks. And while he's walking to the cafeteria, he goes up to the lunch lady and says, "Hi there, I'd like to purchase some sweets." And she says, "Oh, okay, they're $1.50 each." And Issei just pulls out $10 and buys $10 worth of sweets. And he buys the rest of them because he just sees that there's so many assortments of them. And this is the first time that he actually smiles on the outside. Which Konako saw this and was blushing, but she also was like, "Oh no, he's going for the sweets." And she was trying to rush before he bought all the sweets, and she was not fast enough. Issei bought all the sweets. He just calmly walked away while Konako was on the floor, kneeling down, saying, "Why? Why, the gods of sweets, why have you forsaken me?" And the cafeteria ladies are laughing at her, while Issei is just emotionlessly walking towards the roof. And Konako has noticed Issei a little bit, to where she can see that he's sort of depressed, has this depressing aura. Because, well, she knows some depressing people, such as Kiba. Like when they found out about Kiba's past, how depressed he was when he first came on to Reese's Barrage. So she followed him because she knows that the way he's heading towards is the roof. And she thinks he's going to commit to Peku. But all that Issei wants is an isolated life away from others. Because every time he tries to get along with others, it never works out well in his favor. So he walks to the roof, and he sits down in front of the door, while Konako is chasing after him, and she opens the door, sees Issei, jumps on him, and says, "Don't do it! Your life is still worth living, even though you're really, really, really depressed, and have an emotionless face that looks like a dead fish." And Issei says, "First time I heard that, not. Why are you here exactly? I just want to eat alone. I want to be alone." And Konako, on the inside and outside, just said this exact line, "Oh my god, it's the Great Depression. They said that there were, in the scrolls foretold, there would be such an emo that the likes would never see. The legendary emo." And all of a sudden, she sees this dark aura around Issei, just going around him, all over, and she's imagining him saying, "You haven't even seen my true emo-ness." And she's just shaking, and she just looks at him and says, "Why do you want to be alone exactly?" And Issei just says, "Well, I have problems making friends considering I have an emotionless face. And no matter how much I want to show emotion, my face just won't allow it. And it's been plaguing me ever since. I've always had this problem. Whenever people got near me, they'd always stay away from me. They called me names. They wouldn't really mind me. They'd think I'm a freak because I have pitch black eyes. They say I'm a demon, an empty dragon, an empty demon, Satan. They think of me as all that stuff. They just say it out loud towards me. They throw rocks at me. Heck, Some of them even tried to kill me. Some adults did. And he said this in a monotone voice, which when Konako heard this, her heart was just in pieces. That someone would do something this cruel to this man, even when he was a kid, apparently, just because of how his face was, just because he didn't look like he felt anything. That doesn't mean anything. He could feel everything from the inside. She knew this. So she hugged Issei, and Issei felt something different inside of him. And he looked at Konako and said, "Could you please get off of me?" And Konako just squeezed harder and said, "No, you look like you need a hug." And she just nuzzled herself into him, giving him the biggest hug. And Issei says, "I feel weird. Could you please get off of me? I don't know why, but for some reason I feel a little bit warmer than I was before. And for some reason my heart is beating a little fast. I don't understand why." And she just chuckles in her head and says, "Maybe it's because you like the feeling of actually being hugged. I mean, didn't your parents ever hug you?" And Subaru said, "Well, I have a crackhead mother that calls me names, tries to beat at me, and my father left when I was born, saying I was some emotionless demon, so I've never really had an embrace to any other human being." And she just shattered, and she started crying because of how Issei's story was so sad. And Issei doesn't know why, but he tried to wipe away her tears, but he doesn't know why. It was an impulse. He didn't really feel anything towards her. And when that didn't work, Issei just head patted her, getting a purr out of her. And Issei was kind of weirded out, wondering, why is this human purring? And he doesn't know why, but he calls other people humans, as if he wasn't one. And he always did this unconsciously in his mind, never really outside of his mind. But it always worried him. So Issei ended up getting up and going towards a table at the roof, sitting down in one of the chairs while Konako sat across. And Issei pulled out his bento and started eating his rice, his pancakes, his bacon-wrapped sausages. And Konako had drool coming from her mouth because the cafeteria food wasn't really that appealing. And Issei just looked at her and said, "Do you want some?" And Konako said, "Could I please?" And he saw something from a certain show and he said, "Oh, okay." With his chopsticks, he got a sausage with bacon wraps. He got one of those in the chopsticks, and he pointed it towards her mouth, and she was confused, like, I thought I was just gonna grab one. And he just said, "Oh, I saw this from a show. I just wanted to see what would happen, because usually the opposite sex is flustered from this. I wanted to see if that was actually accurate in depictions in reality." And she just shrugs her shoulders and gets closer to him to bite down on the sausage baked wrap, but noticed his face was very close when he was feeding her. And once she got the actual bacon wrap into her mouth and started chewing it, she was still blushing because she was so close to him and almost in front of his face, eating from the chopsticks. And she ended up blushing, and Issei ended up pulling out a notebook saying, Step 1, Rules of Humans. He has it titled into a notebook. Rules of how to be a normal human. Rule 1. Females will blush if you feed them with chopsticks. Interesting. And while she's writing this and saying this out loud, Konako is looking at him dumbfounded because he has a book just to how to be normal, and he's writing rules in it. And she asks, "What's that book for?" And Issei says, "This is a book so I can learn how to be normal, or learn various things of normal activities other people would do." And she ended up saying, she was about to say that wasn't normal, but she kind of liked how she was being fed by him. So she just said, so could you feed me some more? And she also wanted some more food. So Issa said, alright, do you want me to feed you myself, or do you want to just eat some off the plate? And she grabbed some off the plate, and she also said, could you feed me some though? One more time? Because she noticed her heartbeat was skipping previously. She didn't really know why. And she was curious about this feeling, because she doesn't really know what love truly is. She's never felt it. And she thought it would be ridiculous to have love at first sight. So Issei just got the chopsticks out, got another bacon wrap sausage, and was putting it closer towards her mouth. And she was looking at it, and she realized one thing. Issei was already eating rice from that chopstick. So wouldn't this be an indirect kiss? And she was fluttering in her heart. It felt like there was butterflies in her stomach. And her face was cherry red. It was as if it was a complete cherry or a tomato. And she bit down on the chopsticks and on the actual bacon wrap with such force that the chopsticks almost snapped. And Issa just pulled back the chopsticks. And Koneko was very satisfied with the taste of the sausage baked wrap and started eating it and said, "You're a very good cook." And Issa said, "Oh, well, I thank you," with his emotionless, monotone voice. But on the inside felt a little bit of warmth, but he doesn't know why. This is odd, so he wrote it into his actual notebook. And it was unbeknownst to Koneko because she was still focusing on the food she was eating. And Issei started eating his food, eating his rice, and he started putting this sauce on it, which the sauce was a certain type of soy sauce with barbecue in it, and some teriyaki sauce inside, which looked very appetizing because once he poured it on, the aroma was just flying through the air. People even from the cafeteria could smell the scent. People from outside could, and they were wondering what this heavenly smell was. And Koneko was so hungry for that. Her mouth was watering. So Issei just poured some of the rice onto her bowl, and she started eating it, and it felt like her clothes were going to fly off. It felt as if her insides were jealous of the mouth. Her actual stomach was jealous of the mouth for receiving the first taste first. And she was just fidgeting and blushing the entire time while eating, because she was showing an unladylike behavior while eating, and her cattail and ears even popped out, which Issei noticed and wrote down in his book, and she was like, what are you writing down now? She didn't notice her cattail or ears, and he said, apparently humans have cattails and cattail and cat ears. I did not know this. Very interesting, he said aloud. And she looked and she saw that her cat ears and cattail were out. And she's like, yeah. And all of a sudden, Issei just was like, very interesting. I've got to go though. Gotta go home, considering school has just ended. And she noticed that school has just ended because, well, it's a half day for the first day. And she wanted to ask him out, like, she would like to hang out with him, if, he was like to hang out with her. But he was already gone. And she saw a paper on the ground, and it had his number on it. And she blushed, and steam was coming out of her. And she punched in the number into her phone. And on the note, it said, I heard that humans give other humans, which she said in the letter, other people their numbers after they meet. Or if they actually want to. And I, for some reason, felt like doing this, so would you care for my number? If not, then you can throw this away. Which she punched the number very quickly into her phone, almost breaking her phone with the pure strength she almost put behind it, while Issa was walking out of the school, And Rias was feeling his energy the entire time that he entered the school and was watching him, but his energy was so violent whenever she was watching him that it kind of made her stop because she almost passed out and coughed up a lot of blood. And it was unintentional on Issei's part. So Issei started walking home, and all of a sudden, this girl ended up going up towards him and saying, hello, are you Issei Hyodo? And Issei said, why, yes, I am. What exactly do you want? Relatively attractive female by human standards. And she said, what do you mean by human standards? And Issei just said, well, I meant by human standards because I don't think you're really human, considering I can sense an aura that's different about you. And she asked, so, what do you mean by that? And he's like, I don't know why, but when I saw this Konako person, I felt an aura different from you. But I'm assuming humans have different, well, people, I mean, have different auras or something. But anyway, what do you want? And she just shrugs it off, what he was saying, and she says, would you like to go on a date with me? And Issei says, I'd like to kindly refuse. And he just walks away, and the girl gives him, which you already know who it is, Yumi, which is Rainier. Rainier gives him like a blank expression, says, eh? And Issei just looks back and says, oh, I'm not really attracted to you. Or anyone in that matter, so please don't speak to me again on something such as a date. I've heard definitions of a date, and I prefer not to go on one. It sounds more like a hassle. So he just walked away, and he went to his home, went up the stairs, ignoring his crackhead mother, and jumped on the bed and went to sleep. And that is What If Issei Was an Arrancar, Part 1. I hope you enjoy.